Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. Let's talk about employment, unemployment. Why are Black women losing more jobs than everybody else? Let's talk about that. And you know what they say? When white America gets a cold, Black folks get pneumonia. But eventually, this tsunami is coming everyone's way. We need to pay attention, everybody. We need to pay attention. We need to figure out why it is that Black women have lost more jobs than anyone else. 170,000 jobs were added to the job sector in April. Black women lost 106,000 jobs. Why? Is it DEI? Is it something else? What's happening, everybody? You know, you're not Black by degrees, you're Black by pedigree.
Mhm.
But there's something else going on here. Yeah, you all can take it. You can put it in a speech, Dr. Malvo. That's fine with me. But we need to look at what's happening here. You look at what's happening with the most vulnerable people, but then I promise you, if you extrapolate it, it happens to everyone eventually. We're seeing something here. We're seeing something here. So before we get into that, I want you to please, hey, Bernadette, she's on the case. That's right. My girl, Bernadette. Telfair. That's right. She's saying like and share everybody. And please like and share everybody. Let's have this conversation. Let's have it on the Santita Jackson Show. But I'm on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. And I'm on X at Santita J. You can also find the Santita Jackson Show there, but you know, Santita J will do just fine. And then the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, that is the only place where I can get new friends, everybody. I'm still getting requests every day, thankfully. I'm so grateful that people reach out to Santita Jackson, but that's not the page where I can get friends. In fact, they're kicking people off. They have a limit. It's not, but these are not my rules. These are Facebook's rules. But please, everybody, meet us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. You can help us with the algorithm. You help us out a lot if you like and share the show. Like and subscribe there, but also thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. We're finding as we look at the views of shows over time, we get 1 million, 1.5, 2 million views and more. But what I need you to do when you help us with that if you like us and share the show. Because when you like and share the show, what ends up happening is we don't get pushed down when people are trying to find us. Now you know shows that give you the kind of information and have the kind of authentic conversations that we do have, they get pushed down in the algorithm. That's just how it works. But you know, we can work our way around that, but I need you to help me to do it, okay? So I've got a tremendous panel to talk to us about Black women and unemployment, underemployment. What is up with the employment in America? What's happening with Black women in particular? Because a lot of people are beginning to talk about it, but not enough. Not enough. Not enough. Dr. Lakeisha Myers, brilliant educator. We're so glad that she is here with us today. Dr. Alia Amar, social justice advocate. Diane Gibson, Rainbow Bush down there in Texas. That's right. I got an independent voter, Phyllis Terry, who's with me today. Phyllis is having some technical issues, but you know what, Phyllis? You can send me, text me so that you can respond because she always has such really, really brilliant insights. And she is truly independent. And that's important because that's part of who we are. We have a lot of different ideas. We're going to let brilliant economist, of course, the president emeritus of Bennett College for Women. She is the co-president of Push for Excellence. There's so much that she does. I mean, I run out of road when I'm talking about all the things that she has done, but I can say that about everybody here. But of course, brilliant economists help us to understand what we're looking at. Nationally syndicated uh, columnist. And of course, she is on WPFW every Monday at what time?
9 a.m. Eastern.
All right.
And people can
WPFW,
listen to it by
everybody.
going on to WPFWFM.org if you want to hear a live stream of the show at 9 a.m.
That's right. That's right. And then I'm sure they have it archived as well.
Yes, they do.
Okay,
And I'm
very
excited
good.
for tomorrow because I'm talking to a sister and who's talking about Black people and swimming. You know,
Mm.
we don't swim. Now
We
I never
don't.
did because I had all that long hair, and I had got hated on. They would either take my swim cap off, and then I had to go home and get my hair pressed again, or they would simply kick my behind. Well, I do a few blows too, because we got skin color issues in our community, and to be light skinned and long hair, it's like, okay, you get ready to get it. So I finally told my mom, I said, I don't need to know how to swim. I said, this is just too much stress. But our kids drown because they can't swim. They
Yeah.
want to play in the water. They want to do what other kids do. So I'm
But you
talking
know,
to women, and I'm
Dr.
so
Malvo,
excited
we
about
also
it.
don't have the same kind of exposure, right? I mean,
Well,
because I remember, this was an issue more than 40 years ago when we were kids.
Yeah.
And so my mother was very intentional about taking us to see Mr. Jack Hall, who was at the YMCA up the street from our home. And he would throw you in the pool. Dr. Malvo, it was frightening. I hated it. But she said, you will learn to swim.
You did. I'm 10 years older than you, so we didn't quite have the exposure, even though it's San Francisco, but it was challenging.
Hmm.
The other thing about it, we think this woman, Beverly, her name is Beverly Isagosa. She's a Harvard educated lawyer, Grenadian, who essentially is passionate about getting Black people to swim. Well, she's
Hmm.
working now with a couple of universities to map the availability of pools
Hmm.
areas where there are a lot of Black people, because what we'll find is there are not that many pools for people.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that was a digression, but
No,
uh,
no, that's a very real thing. That's why park districts and funding, having real access
yes,
to everything for all of our children is so important. A friend of mine went to, I mean, not to veer off too far afield. A friend of mine went to seminary. He's brilliant, Morehouse, Oxford, all of that. But when he got to seminary, he said, "You know what blows my mind? The people in seminary, the white kids they already read and they wrote in Aramaic." Because in their Sunday schools were real schools. They got graded and all of that. So we've got some work to do, everybody. We've got some work to do. But Dr. Malvo, we've got some work to do. Help us to understand what's happening with 170,000 jobs were added. But we lost 106,000 jobs.
well, a couple of things are happening. First of all, as we know, this president has come in with his Elon Musk slash and burn policies, which have caused us to lose over 200,000 federal employees. And Black women are disproportionately represented as federal employees. We probably are, I want to say 20%, it's around 20% of federal employees, while we're just 13, really 6% of the population.
Mhm.
We, the federal employment or public employment tends to be fairer, not fair, but fairer than private sector employment. Black women earn more with public sector employment. The rules are more structured. So those who worked with the government or been a federal worker, the whole GS system, the
Mhm.
steps that you move up are very well defined. In the private sector, that was my friend, so I promoted her. So we have more safety in federal employment, or we did until Mr. Musk and the buzz saw came along. And so that's where a lot of the Black women's employment loss has been. And I think a lot of sisters are not sure where they go from here. Many have applied for jobs in the private sector or other things. Many, I mean, the way that they have done this has been so egregious that people are very confused, hurt. Some of them, I mean, I know 3 or 4 people who are over 65, so they put their years in.
Mhm.
uh, they're basically saying, I'm not going to put up with this nonsense. One day you're hired, and one day you're working and you've been working. The next day they say, take your stuff and go home. And then you get an order because if they have fired people in essential agencies, then you get an order, come back. And some people are like, nah, I don't
But,
think.
but, but Dr. Malvo, what does that do to people's benefits? I mean, if you took the buyout, for example, does that mean that you lose your health insurance, your pension? I mean, what happened?
All of that is not clear. I talked to AFSCME, the Association of Federal Government Employees. I
Hmm.
talked to them. and it's all being worked out. Right now, many of the people who took the buyout, it's a 6 to 9 month payment that they'll get. And the question of their benefits is questionable. If they've retired, as an example, if they will get Medicare, but of course they're cutting that out too. So basically, people are sitting in limbo, wondering what's going to happen. Meanwhile, you does this have anything to do with DEI? Yes, African American women are overrepresented in DEI type jobs. Uh, at the federal and state level, some of them have been eliminated, but also at the private sector level, some of them have been either reassigned. I mean, if they've been long-term employees, they've been reassigned, or some have been they're in limbo. And so there is an atmosphere of fear in the labor market. People don't know. Now, many of us, of course, we are all resilient. Many of us, my life motto is talk much, what, take none. So, and you know what is. So basically, um, but I personally lost 6 figures because I had speeches that were lined up for Black History Month, Women's History Month. Nope, just cut. So, I'm going to plan B and to figure out. So if any of y'all are looking for a great speaker, call me. But I'm looking at plan B. I mean, it was a blow because I'm trying to finish it, and I had decided I'm not on the hustle for the next 6 months. Because I got the money locked in. Well, you know, think again. And I'm not the only one. There are a lot of folks who, there are a lot of people who have been profoundly impacted by this man and his policies. But one of the worst things is for people a lot of people made the decision to work for the government. My mother used to say, you need to go get you a good government job.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all
Everybody heard that.
and of course, the good government job turned out not to be so good. If you're in the band where you were making a decision about retirement, where you're making a decision about long run. So that's the main thing that is happening is the public sector employment situation that is really affecting Black women. Now, there are other small things, but as you said, the economy, the labor market expanded, but the window for Black women contracted. And so that's where many of us are. One of the big tragedies are young people. Some young people have been offered jobs. A couple of people I know not personally, but have talked. They relocated to Washington for their new jobs, and then because they're quote probationary, which means you work there for less than 2 years, you almost have no rights. So you have now moved yourself from, in one case, I know of San Francisco to Washington D.C., signed a lease, no job. What are you supposed to do? So that's really where we are, and all of this is a function of this MAGA movement. And then there's more, of course, it trickles down in these ways. If you used to work for a Head Start, some of our Head Starts have been cut. If you have lots of summer programs have been cut. Tragically, disability education has been cut. Well, the Department of Education basically shutting down. They haven't shut down completely, but I think they're down to about 2/3 of their employments that they were before the inauguration. And so anything that was expecting federal funding is on the chopping block. And again, we are heavily represented in the services, the social services. We're heavily represented in federal employment. We're overrepresented in the places where these madmen have decided to just come in with a buzzsaw and say that they're going to cut. And the worst thing about it, Santita, is the inelegance of it. I mean, you can fire people. I've had to fire people in my lifetime. Didn't want to, but sometimes they give you no choice. But there's a way to do it. And to just say, get your stuff within the National Security Council, 30 minutes to get their stuff out of their offices.
That's right.
30 minutes to get their stuff out of their offices. People have been working there 10, 12, 20 years. 30 minutes to get their stuff basically out of their offices. And then the other thing that we have to look at is the shrinkage of the talent pool. There are people who are going to be gone who know stuff. I mean, they had to bring back some people because they didn't know. And they have hired the people, and they had to tell them, can you please come back? Because they simply didn't know. This has been, a real mess, a hot monkey mess. But my belief is that the current president wants to destabilize our economy, destabilize employment. And if you have confusion, there will be confusion, and it's destabilizing. So if I just digress for one second, because I know my sisters have a lot to say, because I'm just great to be on with this great panel. But the other piece of this is the uncertainty around tariffs that is causing people, investors, small business people don't know. All of us, I talked to my AKA sister before we got on. We have our bags and all our little goodies that we get at convention. Those things come from China. So now the sorority fraternities and others are looking at, depending, could be as much as double the cost of one of them little canvas tote bags, or it could be 20% as much. And we don't know because they're still negotiating. This is called chaos as you go along. And again, all I have to say is a whole lot of people did not think ahead when they voted for this president. They expected, he was going to do a good job with the economy, which he has not. But they did not expect this chaos and confusion that is affecting everyone.
But let me ask you this: is this primarily white collar, or is this all across the board, Dr. Malvo?
Well, it's all across the board in some ways, but it's primarily white collar. But here's why it's all across the board. If you have a GS-15 employee, a manager, he or she has clerical support. If you close offices, there are people who are cleaning those offices. So a lot of people think, oh, gee, this is just the middle class, but no, it's all the way
No,
down.
see, that's why I'm trying to say, wait a minute, because it's an ecosystem. Because the
Yes,
fact is, if you don't have a clean office, you got a problem.
exactly.
So
That's right.
the boss, the cleaning lady, and the janitor, they have equal weight. If you don't believe that the support staff is equal, if you don't think that they're important, they were the essential workers during COVID. They're,
Absolutely.
they're the ones who had to go into the office. They're the ones who had to go clean the hospitals. They're the ones who had to pick up the garbage. They're the
Yeah, and now
yeah.
what you have is when you say you're going to get rid of the managers, what
Mhm.
happens then going down the line? So a lot, like I said, a lot of people have focused primarily on the top, but we have to understand that there's a trickle down that's affecting it too. Here in Washington D.C., as they talk about closing offices, it's also having an impact on the real estate market. If you're closing,
Mhm.
who owned that office building? It wasn't the federal government. I mean, the federal government owns some of the offices, but private realtors own a lot of it too, and so that becomes another piece of the issue.
It's
Um,
it's it's all the way around. Diane Gibson, you've been working with Rainbow Push for decades now, and you're in Texas and more. It's interesting, Dr. Malvo. More Black people. I don't know what's going on in Texas, but more Black people are in Texas than any other state in the union. I was like,
That's
wait a minute,
right.
you all have gone past Mississippi. What? Unbelievable. I don't know what's happening in Texas, but I do know 80% of the federal workforce is not in Washington.
Nope.
exactly.
It's everywhere. And we work at all levels of employment.
Mhm.
Yes,
You know,
we do.
we bring home the bacon we fried in the pan. Okay, it's
Say
all
that.
of that and everything in between. And and with the butchers too, we're all of that.
That's
So
right.
I mean, a lot of well, everything that Dr. Malvo said was resonating with you. Why? So what is it that what are you seeing? I mean, were you surprised by this revelation, by this story?
I really was. I really, since I retired from the
Oh no,
doctor.
no. Now we have to get you in a good place because we can't hear you, Doctor. We can't hear you, Diane Gibson.
Okay. I don't know why it's a lot of
No,
static,
no,
so I'm
that's
not sure.
perfect. We got you right now.
That's good.
That's
Okay.
good.
I concur with everything Dr. Malvo said, and that's going on right here in Texas. I wasn't aware of it because I recently retired from city government, then from county government. So I've retired from all the governments. So,
Hmm.
but I was just amazed at the numbers. I had no idea until, once you retire, you kind of get out of the loop. But I was just amazed at the information that I've read and I've seen that was that number. that was high in numbers as far as African American women were concerned. But that is, I mean, she basically said it all. All I could do is repeat what she said. But I concur with her. It's not just happening in D.C. It's actually happening here in the state of Texas.
But but even you've been an activist from way back. I mean, I must say, whenever Reverend
It's
Jackson
okay,
would go to
age me.
Texas, well, no. I mean, whenever Reverend Jackson went to Texas, he had a few people who were go-tos, and you've been one of his go-tos for a decade. So, setting up the events, and really, you became a catch-all, Dr. Malvo, because when there was a problem in Texas, Diane Gibson would call Reverend and say, hey, like if there was a problem in Washington or California, you would call Reverend. Dr. Malvo, wherever. Okay. So
And
my,
I was
my
able to help
question
Dr.
is,
Malvo when she came to Dallas, Texas. So
absolutely.
it's a
Been there
joy.
many times. Been there
But
many
Yes,
times.
but my
it is a
question for
true joy.
you, eh,
She says,
but you see, I mean, are you surprised that Black women have been hit the hardest? Diane,
Yes.
really?
I'm not. I'm gonna tell you why. I am
Why?
not surprised at all. Malcolm actually celebrated his birthday last week Monday, and he
Mm-hmm.
said black women was the most disrespected, neglected, and unprotected as anyone on the planet. And so when we look at this, the thing that we have to do as critical thinkers is understand while some of this is so-called race neutral, some of this
Mm-hmm.
is also very targeted. And who is the most unprotected, disrespected, etc.? Black women. And black women have shown in the post inauguration period enormous activism and resilience. I'm thinking of people like Latasha Brown, Melanie Campbell. These sisters are still out there. They're on the front line. So why not hit us where we live? And when you weaken a black woman's income, her ability, her children, understand what's
Mm-hmm.
happening with the Department of Education, our children. This it looks like, oh gee, we're just cutting. But no, you choose
Mm-hmm.
where you cut. When you cut education, you're cutting black people. You're disproportionately cutting black people. Our kids are disproportionately have learning disabilities. That has been cut. There will not be special help for students with learning disabilities. That was available before. It's not available now. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
So what does
I
this mean?
want
It means for
Well,
a woman who, let's say, is not retired, as my dear sister Diane is, that's the more riding around to get your child the services they need. Will that
Mm-hmm.
impact your job? This is so multi-layered and it's so evil. I mean, evil, what does that think of using the word evil in the context of public policy? But when
Mm-hmm.
you essentially um, focus on a population, it is.
well, and eventually, honestly, he's going to hit everybody.
Oh
You
yeah.
got
Yes. Yes.
$36 trillion in debt. No. I'm hearing too many of these legislators, federal legislators, who keep saying if we don't cut, we're facing insolvency. I've heard too many of them say it. And the last time we were in shape that even approached the depth of this problem, Dr. Malvo, we had a Great Depression with people jumping out of windows and whatnot. So
Yep.
we'll see. But you know what? Let me bring in. I don't know if Dr. LaShawn Latrice have been texting you. Want to make sure that you are ready to come on camera. Just nod and let me know. Thank you very much. All right. Um, Dr. Amar, what are you hearing?
so one of the things that I find as being interested, and I want to pick up on, was what Dr. Malvo just said about targeting,
Mm-hmm.
because we need to take into consideration that yes, it's well known that the federal workforce has a very high level of participation from Black women. Why is that? In part, it's because African American women, Black women, are the most educated segment of the American population. So it wasn't, as this administration attempts to frame DEI in a negative way. It wasn't that we were just being given these jobs. We earned these jobs. We were
Come on.
educated, and it is not easy to get a federal job. You are competing against thousands and thousands of people for every single position. In addition, African American women serve in the United States military at very high numbers. And the
Mhm.
United States military feeds directly into public service. You have um, additional points. There's a point system in the federal government. In order to get a job, they look at how many points do you have, and then they consider you in ranking against other people. So it's been very interesting to me that when Elon Musk came in, part of what these Doge people wanted was they wanted data. They wanted access to
Mhm.
computer systems
That's
and
right.
information. They wanted human resources information, which includes things like your race. And so I don't think that we can underestimate the targeting of the most educated class of women, because the most educated class of women, and Dr. Malvo, you can speak to this as well, given what you've just been talking about from Malcolm X's mother. An educated woman will educate her children, and
Mhm.
those children then have the potential to do something different. We've seen
Mhm.
targeting of the African American community throughout our time in this country, but we saw an increase after the civil rights movement. First, it became the targeting of our families, changes in social
Mhm.
structure. You
Mhm.
know, people will change behavior based on their ability to earn money,
Mhm.
or to get access to money and things. So there were attempts to change the support systems within the country and to make an influence on our families, but we're strong people. We adjusted. Then there was
Mhm.
an attempt to overly incarcerate our men. Um,
Mhm.
if our men are incarcerated, maybe you just don't get as many, black children, and the black
Mhm.
population is being curtailed in a different way than when they did things like sterilize black women and sterilize Puerto Rican women. Now you're not seeing that impact is as deep as it is. You know, we have survived crack epidemics, we've survived
Say
drugs being
that.
pushed into our
Mhm.
communities, we've survived guns being pushed into our communities, and our sisters get up, go out, get educations, and get jobs. And now that the federal government needs another way, because remember, the browning of America is already well in place. And I know that some things can sound a little conspiratorial when you begin to reach at all the edges and tie them together. But my
Mhm.
grandmother crocheted, and so I know that you can pull a few things from here and a few things from there, and it
Yes.
makes integrated sense. When you began to look at the threat that this government appears to feel is present because of the browning of America, to such
Mhm.
an extent that they have even shipped in white South Afrikaners who created their own whites only town when apartheid was taken away
Mhm.
from them, and then created this false narrative around white genocide.
Mhm.
People, you don't have to remember deep history, you have to remember your history. Nelson Mandela did what no other world leader believed. Because when you have oppressors and colonizers that take over your country, one of their greatest fears is that if you get your power back, you're going to do unto others what they just
What
did
they
unto
done
you.
to you.
But the South Africans under Nelson Mandela came in and said, you know what? We need to
Mhm.
have reconciliation. We
Mhm.
need to find ways to kind of speak publicly about this and
No,
move on. We
truth,
can't.
truth, and
Yes, truth
reconciliation.
and reconciliation.
Truth,
Exactly. Truth and
truth.
reconciliation. We're
Yeah.
not going to ignore it. We're going to put it out there.
Mhm.
But that left the most bigoted people in their country feeling very, very off put. And
Mhm.
some of them created their own towns, their
Mhm.
own whites only towns, right? And we just, at a time when the immigration system is locked down, we're not accepting refugees, we're not supporting people who supported us, Afghani translators who are waiting in Afghanistan and trying to get to America because they and their families are literally at risk of death at any moment because they helped the United States government against people in their own society. We're not bringing them in. We're not saying that we recognize refugees and refugee situations from places like that. No, we made an exception in the United States to ship in
Mhm.
white supremacists, genocide liars from South Africa. Why? Why? Because these things are all tied together. It's
Mhm.
not just that Black women are being pushed out and we didn't get the most jobs. It's that Black and Brown people represent a threat to a segment of this country that is now empowered, and they are using every means necessary in the most draconian version of it in order to suppress our ability to have the society that we deserve, we fought for, and we built.
Well, there is a through line, but everyone I want to look at Black women losing these jobs.
Mhm,
Mhm.
The reason I want to zero in there is because if you have a husband or a partner,
mhm,
or partnered, however you're partnered, in
Mhm.
America, you typically need at least two incomes to make it.
mhm,
You're right.
And Black women are making it on, and women in general are making it on one income, and you can barely do that.
mhm,
Barely. I mean, we've got, this is a real problem. And what's happening to Black women, we're on fire, but I see
Mhm.
the embers burning every place else.
mhm,
Well,
Doctor.
but you
Yeah.
have a greater concentration of single moms among Black women
Yeah.
You're
than
right.
among others.
mhm,
That one of the things that's interesting that we're seeing now with white women is that their husbands in about a third of cases, their husbands are earning less than they are.
Yeah.
So you've got these situations where the guy is you know, they're not equally yoked financially. Let me just put it that way.
Right.
mhm,
So that does have implications. We've been used to that always.
All our
mhm,
lives. Yes.
We've always had the teacher who might have
Mhm.
been
Be
married to,
married to the janitor. And
mhm,
Yes.
and they worked it out. But
yeah,
mhm,
and so we're seeing that kind of upset because we saw that upset, quite frankly, coming after the Second World War. Because
mhm,
Mhm.
women, while the men went overseas to fight, women went to the factories and went
mhm,
to work to keep America
Mhm.
moving. And
mhm,
these,
and as soon as they
and
came
Black men and
back,
white men came back to an America
they
that had
fired
mhm,
completely changed.
they fired the women
They
who had
did.
made this country work, and
mhm,
Yeah.
that's been a challenge in our.
But also what took off, the civil rights movement, the modern civil
yeah,
rights movement, the women's right, all these movements took off because
Mhm.
America had fundamentally changed. And
Yep,
America's fundamentally changed once again. I mean, if you talk to these kids today, and let me get to you, Dr. Myers, we haven't heard from you yet. And we're going to keep on going past the 52-minute mark because everyone loves having this all female panel, and I want to hear from everybody. But I think it's very important for us to have this discussion, um, because this is hitting everybody.
yeah,
Mhm.
No one, I don't care what your educational attainment is. You're Black, I told you, not by pedigree. I mean, by pedigree, not by degree. And I mean degree of color or degrees you have.
mhm,
Because medicine changed, for example. Doctors used to be independent businessmen and women.
mhm,
Now they work for corporations, so they don't have the freedom, even intellectually that they used to have.
mhm,
They've got to push these pharmaceuticals or they are out of business. Everything's changed. Everything's gotten corporatized. We've got a problem. But I mean, what are you seeing, Dr. Myers, as an educator? Because that was our space, Dr. Malvo, Diane. These federal jobs. What did you see, Diane? You said no. I worked for the city. I worked for the county, state. What? Okay, and you're a double retiree. Thank God. But you got it.
mhm,
You got in and out just in time because the
Yes.
arc of your career follows Dr. King, Reverend Jackson, because
mhm,
at that time we were pushing because people didn't just walk into these jobs. No one cares about your degree. That's
mhm,
No.
lovely. I'm glad you got it. But guess what? If you didn't have people advocating for you to get in that
That's
job,
right.
to get in that door, and to keep it, I can't tell you the people who we've had the
You're
money
right.
to keep on television to keep
Yeah.
these jobs. Now, would they speak to us once they got them? No, they were cute. I get it. I'm just keeping it 100
Oh,
because this is
for
where we
real.
are. Because the
Yes,
playing field
you're
has been
right.
leveled and we have been
Mhm.
knocked to the ground.
You're
Dr.
right.
I agree with what everyone has said thus far, but I think when you look at some of the numbers that have been published in a lot of the newspapers and things, you talk about what jobs were added versus what jobs were taken away. So we know the big dent that was there from the federal government slashing jobs left and right. And those workers that are primarily, especially if they're on the older end, where do you go? How do you now apply for
Mhm.
a job?
Mhm.
Okay. People haven't had to do a resume in a long time. You just competed
You're
for the
right.
level up
Hmm.
in the GS system. Now you have to basically start all over and get into a pool that is now heavily run by AI. So let me bring that piece of it in.
Right.
If anybody knows about Workday, Workday is going to be a lawsuit from Workday.
Wait.
Mhm.
And AI's got a personality. I was reading a semaphore article to your point
AI does have a
where
personality, and that
they were going to
personality is
shut this.
99.9% white.
Wait a minute, they
Even
were
when
going
you
to
go
shut.
into
Say
the
that. Say
bathroom and
Hold
you
on,
that
they
need
were
the
part.
going to
water
shut
to
an
come out,
AI
it
system
doesn't
down.
recognize dark
No,
skin.
no, let me share this with you. They were going to shut an AI
That part.
system down, and the AI system threatened the engineer with the exposure of his affair.
The AI did
Oh
that?
my God.
Wait,
AI
wait.
AI.
Say
did.
that again.
Look, I
Yeah,
come with the
please
receipts.
repeat
That's
that.
why when I tell y'all to hush, wait a minute. I'm trying to move the conversation, give y'all some information. Because
Okay.
that's why I host this thing. To let you know, wait a minute. When I read that, I went, wait a minute. They said, oh no, we will we're gonna let your wife know what you've been doing. Since AI has got you all your information,
Mhm.
they can turn over the receipts. You can't semaphore article. I'm gonna pull this up for you,
Mhm.
girl. So y'all can see it. I just said, huh? You can't make it up.
No, you can't make this stuff up. But when you think about how we apply for jobs now, there are
Hmm.
no more paper applications. And if they are, it's probably a mom and pop that's been around a
Hmm.
long time that will accept a paper application. So when you think
That's
about
right.
how you even apply for a job today,
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, you're doing an online
Mhm.
AI-based application. And with the company Workday, they just been exposed because if Lakeisha applies for a job versus Sarah, then Sarah may get a contact back right away while Lakeisha did all that time. And it's a long time to work on some of these job applications, which is crazy. But you take all this time to do that. And then 20 minutes later, you're getting a, okay, well, we have not selected you. How did you not select me? Because nobody in human form has reviewed this application
Mhm.
right now. If I applied at 11:30 p.m., I know you did. So I
Mhm.
know you just are scanning, looking for certain things, and then moving along. So that's one of the things that is an issue. I think when you look at the types of jobs that were added, healthcare, I think they added, quite a few jobs, but jobs that were lost in the economy, leisure and hospitality. You think about
Mhm.
people who are frontline workers. Santita
Hmm.
talked about these people that were considered essential workers during the pandemic. Now, using Washington, D.C. as a perfect example, you go down K Street, you go into your Department of
Mhm.
Education building, whatever else, 100 or 1,000 people stop by Starbucks to get coffee every morning going into that
That's
building.
right.
If there are no more people going into the building, that Starbucks, and I'm using a big company like Starbucks, they close because they don't have their
Hmm.
regular foot traffic every day. So it's a cyclical effect from inside and outside the building when you think about those types of industries that exist. You think about jobs that were added in healthcare. What were the jobs in
Mhm.
healthcare? Because there can be so many doctors, but they still have openings for those. I don't know if you checked lately, but American is not really producing a whole lot of doctors like we need to be. So where do
No.
you
Right.
get the doctors from that are doing these jobs in healthcare? But then what jobs are being added? So are you adding the janitorial staff at the hospital or no, not really? Or are you those the people you're letting go or making them stretch themselves thinner to do these things? In education, when Dr. Amar and I were talking before we started, but looking at this process, this is where I always talk about Black folks work education adjacent versus being the certificated educator. And I have been on this soapbox for like the past 20 years. When you look at people who are my mother's generation, folks that, born in the 40s and 50s, a lot of times they had no option when they
Hmm.
after college but to
Hmm.
go become a teacher. So you had a whole lot of Black people that were teachers during that time. As those individuals started to retire, there were not this bustling group of people that said, you know what I want to do today? I want to grow up and become a teacher. So now we are sitting here with this big gaping hole of non-certificated educators that are there, and we still have these kids that we have to teach. But now your classroom sizes are already at 35 and 40. Don't mention we're in the inner city where nobody's really clamoring to go teach there. So now you may have a class roster of 40 or 50, and that's per teacher. You still have classes that have to be collapsed or taught online or doing all of these things because we don't have enough people. But the first people who always get cut down the line are the paraprofessionals, the people who help cook the food in the cafeteria, the people who help with security when JoJo won't sit down, because those are the jobs that we do a lot of times. But we are not pushing those that are in education to go and become the certified teacher. Because I tell anybody, teaching is predominantly dominated by white women between the age of 25 and 45. And guess what? The unions are protecting the people who have that teaching license. And that's something that we look at all the time. So even in my own profession, I'm looking at, oh, I see how this is going. Okay, we can still yell and go have a rally, and the school board will still give an increase when they don't have enough money, then turn around and ask the community for a referendum so they can make sure they pay the 12 teachers they got in that one building because they hold the license. So that is something that we still look at, even in inequity with where we are placed, even in these public sector jobs. So just like Dr. Malvo talked about, if the manager's department is getting cut, that means the cleaning person for that level of the office is getting cut. That means their support staff is getting cut. Depending on what you do, you could have 3 or 4 support staff that help one particular unit, or 3 or 4 people in a pool. Now you're losing all of these things. That still trickles down to that family level of, how do I pay for this, or how do I pay for that? When you think about Prince George's County, I used to live in Prince George's County, own my house there. When we had a government shutdown in PG County, the last time we had one and I was there, it was evident to me that a lot of people were living paycheck to paycheck in PG County. Yes, you live in a $500,000 house, but when that check does not come from the U.S. government, it's a whole lot of lights that got cut off. It's a whole lot of kids who were needing free and reduced lunch. It was a whole lot of kids that did not have access to some of the things that they would normally have because they did not have that government income. So now where do you see these people going? Depending on where they are. You could be in the GS system, and if you were there early enough, have just a high school diploma. A lot of folks in Prince George County do not have bachelor's degrees or higher because they were veterans or they went through some other way. And you can get into the GS system. You could work Metro and make $125,000 a year, which is some people are like, wait, what? If you live in other parts of the country, it does not seem reasonable to you. If that
it seems reasonable to me if you're driving my train.
Yes,
I want to make that money
to have that skill set. So where do you go with all of those things? So that trickle down is real, because if you aren't moving that many people back and forth, what happens? If you don't have to run as many trains in from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Or what do? Now you start cutting routes. Do you start doing all these other things? How does that work for your infrastructure that's there going forward? So I think it's a lot that we have to think about Black women specifically in the types of industries that we're in, like you said, degreed or not, how we maintain that ecosystem within the family and how that echoes into our communities and all of those things. For sure.
See, because it doesn't trickle down on us, it trickles out.
Yes.
Because Black people, we have different classes, but we have the same caste.
Yes.
And we have to be clear on, and if we're not clear on that, we're about to really understand some things. Nothing trickles down, it trickles out.
No, but I think a lot of people are figuring that out too, Santita. When you talked about, you and Dr. Malvo alluded to this, well, people fool around and find out. I'm going to use Dr. Malvo's favorite other word, fool around and find out, because the cows, I live in Wisconsin now. So the people who were there telling us, well, I didn't think it was going to affect us. And most of the people that milk our cows, they from out of the country. So we got to get up and milk cows at 3 a.m. Oh, I feel bad for you because you should have voted for somebody else. At least you still got the cow.
A lot of people are not eating. We're seeing a lot. I mean, the reverberations of this, especially on Black families, but it's across the board, Santita. You're absolutely right. This is not just about Black people. It's just heavily concentrated. But
Yes.
you know,
Wait a minute, at this time. Because I will say this. Let me say this because I want to bring in Dr. Latrice, and we're going to go past the 52-minute mark, everybody. And if you would bear with me, I want you all to stay because this is a conversation we should be having in the so-called corporate media. But as I've been sharing with you, Dr. Malvo, we have our own media. Let's push this story out because this is our story. There's his story, and there's her story, and there's our story, and we're the ones who have to tell it.
Yep.
Jet Magazine told our stories. Ebony told our stories. That's it. And that's what we have to be. Because the thing is, we work at every level. Most of us are not white collar workers. Most of us are not. And for no one had more money than Miss Sylvia, who owned Sylvia's restaurant in Harlem. It was a diner. Then she got the next building. Woman from South Carolina. Because we've given up on that. We have moved away from the things that are real gifts that kept us afloat. I'm not saying that everybody here doesn't have gifts, but I'm saying I have never been able to get a relaxer. So my girl across the hall became my line sister, Emily Page, and I used to blow each other's hair out because we couldn't get relaxers. But if we got a nice blowout, it was great for 2 days. It was great. And then there were a couple other people in the dorm who really knew how to do hair that was unrelaxed. That was not this, not that, in between hair, right? It's okay. And they were in the Howard School of Business. Never, ever, ever. And these girls could do some hair. And they never, ever, ever thought about opening a salon. I said, I don't know a Black beautician who can really do some hair who is broke. I don't know one who cooks
or a tradesman.
I do. Oh, wait a minute. What'd you say? Fool around and find out? We're going to find out a lot of things. But hold on. Because I know I only have a few more minutes left in this segment. We're going to continue on. Because we got to talk about this, and I want us to have. I know you're gonna have to go, Dr. Malvo, but that's all right. Dr. Latrice, I know you've been holding. Well, no, you know what? When I hear this headline like I did days ago, I said, wait a minute, who's going to have this conversation about us? I'm a single head of my household. I own my shows. I got to work to get sponsorship every day. Okay, and the political positions I take have had me put off stations. Okay, that takes bread. That takes food off my table. But I'm willing to do that. I get it. But most of us are not white collar. We're not. So they're losing these jobs. Most of us in America, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, cannot afford to rent in the same place, the same city we work in. And you have a government that is spending $2 trillion more every year than it's taken in. And we got a $36 trillion debt. And the Chinese and the Japanese collectively control half of our debt. Has anyone asked the question? Have they called in their chips?
Right.
Well, I don't know. But I do know we're losing these jobs. And what you say in PG County, which is the wealthiest black county in the country.
Yep.
We are tenuously in this middle class or upper middle class or even wealth. I can't tell you, and I will call no names, the people who've called Reverend in his prime. Some of the people you see in the papers. Reverend, I'm about to miss payroll. Now, when Reverend was trying to keep his payroll, and you know this, Dr. Malvo, you don't call any names, be quiet, Juliana. They would clown us at push. But Reverend was the one who would have to make the phone call.
Hello.
To wait a minute, you got to release this record company's inventory. Or wait a minute, you got to fulfill her contract. They're going to be out of business. That lovely office that they have downtown, they're going to be put out. Everybody's there now. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I've queued it up for you. Woo-hoo-hoo.
I have just enjoyed this panel. I've enjoyed hearing the
Why?
different perspectives
Why?
because these conversations need to be had more frequently. They need to be a little more intentional. And I really appreciate you just doing everything in your power to make sure that our voices are heard and that we can talk about what we've experienced and what we see our coworkers, colleagues, our friends, our family members experiencing. I think there's this major panic going on. Some people are silent about it, others are not. And I think that because they keep rolling out these numbers of people that they're going to let go, people are kind of anxious, not knowing if they're in that number or not, because the qualifications to be released make no sense. I have some friends that are in the military, and these are Black women.
Mhm.
They work for the government. They've been in those spaces for a while, but they feel like they're on the chopping block. And
Mhm.
they
In the military?
they've been in the military. They've retired from the military, so they
Mhm.
have government jobs. I had no idea until these conversations came up how many people actually were rooted in the military, and that's how they ended up in those government positions. See, I never
Mhm.
knew.
Mhm.
I dealt in the world of corporate structures. When you graduate from college, you get a corporate job. I just knew that I was made to be an entrepreneur. But I also worked in the corporate structures along the way because those experiences helped me get to, the world of entrepreneurship. But even in that respect, I'm listening to the parallels that exist between what happened during COVID and how people had to miss meals and income was cut.
Mhm.
Now we're doing the exact same thing, but it's because these jobs have been cut. And now people are anticipating missing mortgages, anticipating not being able to pay their utilities. I just got 3 calls from people asking me how they can apply for CETA, and they have very good jobs, but they don't know. They just don't know what's going to happen. They feel like, they need to prepare because they've been impacted so much. And I said, I feel like this is almost like a repeat of 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago,
Mhm.
we had to all just take a major shift. And when we took that shift, we didn't know what that was going to look like on the other side. And many survived, but many didn't. Many people
Mhm.
had to reset, and they had to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out. And we're resilient. I
Mhm.
know as women, as Black women, we're very resilient. So we're always trying to do something. But what we're going through now, because I have a daughter that's in college and, some other children, it's caused us to have these other conversations about how about let's think about what you want to do in the interim or what you want to do as a backup plan. It's almost like you have to put these mechanisms in place because, that age old saying of the good government job, it's not what it was. And it never resonated with me. I was told that growing up all the time, but I always thought, couldn't I just have my own? Couldn't I just, work for my own? And that way I can be a person who employs people and give them the fair wages and the things that they deserve. And, and we don't have to get in there and always fight for it. But guess what? I still been fighting for 20 plus years, still been fighting for the equal wages, equal pay, and to be treated fairly as a Black woman. And so now you get this administration that comes in and they're very dominant in their thought process, and people kind of think, well, he's going to do what he wants to do anyway, and I'm thinking, but why don't we just roll up our sleeves and band together and let's push back at most of this stuff that's going on that's impacting us, because like you said, Santita, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, you're going to be impacted. There's no way you're not going to feel the wrath of everything that's going on now. So I just feel like right now we're at a time where we got to band together, unite, and make sure that we understand that the power of us unified is greater than separate.
Well, Doge legally has been overturned for the most part. But still, people have lost these jobs. There is something else going on here, and we need to have a real conversation about it and not be afraid to ask the questions or fearful of the answers
Mhm.
that come at us. Because there's something going on in the economy that no one really wants to talk about. When you had a Great Depression, people jumped out the windows. People are a little harsher today. They won't hurt themselves, they hurt other people.
I
We
still
are
don't think
spending,
that.
hold on one
No,
moment. We're
sorry.
spending money. No, no, it's okay. We're spending money we don't have.
Mhm.
And we're denying Americans money that they need. We make Americans appear to be freeloaders. No, no, no. The freeloader is Boeing, who cannot keep a plane in the sky safely. But they're the ones who were the big winners from President Trump's trip to the Middle East. Middle East. They're the ones who got the lion's share of the contracts. They and general election. Why another war?
Mm,
Next what? Wait a
mhm.
minute. How? But see, now I understand how you can flunk your audit 7 consecutive times, and you this the Peter principle. You fail up, but you're still looking for black welfare queens.
Mm.
AM 950. The Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio. I want you to stay with us. We're going to continue to have this conversation about just help me to understand why black women are losing more jobs than anyone else and be very clear. It's black women today. It's everybody else tomorrow. Oh, this tsunami, it's coming. It's coming. It gets the most vulnerable first, always. The Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you as we talk about in the month of April, 170,000 jobs were added to the vote to the employment rolls. But 106,000 jobs were lost by black women, and they were not all white collar. What's going on, everybody? I want you to meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet us all over here. Meet us over here. Please like and subscribe, and please share the show, everybody. Share the show. The Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That's the only place where I can get friends, everybody. The other page is a landing page. Please, please, please go to Santita Jackson and Friends and at Santita J on X. I am joined by Dr. Lakeisha Myers, brilliant educator. She's been a public official. We have got social justice advocate, Dr. Alia Amar. We have got Dr. LaShawn Latrice. That's right, everybody. I forgot to give you, she's a community psychologist, so I know everybody's going to be quiet now. She's measuring everything that you say. Starting with you, Dr. Melvo.
Whatever.
I know. We love Dr. Melvo, President Emeritus of the Bennett College for Women, but she is a brilliant economist and she helps us to understand all of this. And of course, she's on WPFW every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in to the show. She's going to be talking about what tomorrow?
We're going to talk about, well, there's a sister coming out at the top to talk about the history of protest. Very timely, Gloria Brown Marshall. And then Beverly Isagoa, who is a swimming coach and passionate about Black people swimming, about more of us swimming, about the fact that, I mean, it's a life skill that many of us lack for any number of reasons. They cemented pools over in the South.
Absolutely.
Cemented the pools over. When I think it was Lena Horne, one of our divas, was in Las Vegas and just went into the pool, they drained the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just because this Black person had been in the pool. Never mind, I'm not going to go there because we don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time. But I want to just say quickly, Santita, that I appreciate these sisters and their perspectives. It's really important that we mix it up in this way with different occupations and different perspectives, because what's happening to us, it's economic, but economics is everything. Economics is psychology, economics is advocacy, economics is education. And I always had a challenge talking to people about how you just can't drill down and say, well, this is an economic issue. Interest rates affect school bonding. Can you float a bond to build a new school depending on the interest rate? And we can go down the list. So I just appreciate these sisters and hearing them. And like I said, you got about 5 more minutes of me, and then I got to do a pump.
let me share this with you, because the reason because I want to have a conversation that's even broader, because no one has impacted our lives more profoundly than Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes.
Who did not have a degree. See, Black people cannot afford to exclude anyone from this conversation, because that's not how we live. And that's one of the great lessons. First of all, tribalism was broken up for us when we came over here on the ships. Because we were just, what did Fiddler say? You in America now, you are just black. That's it. And the caste system, because America, at least on paper, is supposed to be about breaking all of that up. Well, we know that's not true, but it's something that's going to happen because everybody's getting hit. Everybody. And Naima, hey, Naima, sending you so much love. My sister, she said, our focus and intention for our college students has to be entrepreneurship. We have skills. We need to follow Africa's lead and stop depending on whites to take care of us. And I will say, Naima, and depending upon big anything to take care of you. God sent you here with enough skills, Dr. Malveaux, for you to be able to make it. Dr. Amar, Dr. Myers, Dr. Latrice, even though, as I said, doctor, I have doctors here. But trust me, I've invited a lot of people on today, and we're going to continue to have these conversations because what do you do when you lose that job? That six-figure job that you never thought you'd lose? Because Dr. Malveaux, these big government jobs, you don't think about us. When I hear these senators, and I've heard more than one talk about getting this budget together because they say, look, we're trying to avoid insolvency. See, everybody, I listen to everything that everyone says. And you don't have to be on my side of the political aisle because really I'm an independent, really. I want to hear what everybody's saying because somebody's going to drop some gem, and generally they drop it on the other side of the tracks that you need to pick up. Because they're saying something to us while they're cutting. In the meantime, when the president of the United States goes overseas and he is the salesman for Boeing and GE. See, you have to know who's on the plane. See, we've taken enough trips, Dr. Malveaux, as you know, with Reverend Jackson. The people who go on these missions with Reverend were business people who were trying to get into the marketplace. That's how this works. When Ron Brown was killed, God rest his soul, he had a plane full of executives. At least he did initially. They all got off the plane in Paris, but that's another story. That's what this is about. In the meantime, Dr. Malveaux, what do we do? Because you hear Naima is saying, you know what? Depend on self.
Well, we're going to have to do that anyway. And we should have been doing that all along. We've missed a lot of opportunities, but it's never too late. So rely on self, number one. But number two, and more importantly, advocate, organize is really important. We cannot be silent. I mean, I got a weird call from somebody I went to college with who's a Republican. We were not friends, and we still not friends. But she called me to say, "I care about."
He called you. We know you're a closet Republican.
She called me to ask me to calm down. I said something on there. She said, "Girl, they're looking at everybody, including you." I said, "Look, I'm a little fish." She said, "No, you do not understand."
Okay.
She said, "They're coming after everybody." She said,
"Wait a minute," and she was being a friend.
Yes, she was.
No,
I appreciate it
because she does not want to see you get swept in the undertow. Because I've had friends who come back to the United States who are American citizens, and they're being stopped. Dr. Malveaux.
Well, I called my lawyer before I went to Grenada. And I said, if I need to call you, if they try to mess with me, I need to call you. I just need you to know. I said, and I'm putting you on speed dial just in case.
Yes.
Anyway, neither here nor there. But the bottom line is we need to advocate, organize, and talk to each other. I mean, one of the other things happening is that we're not talking to each other. You talked about the class issue. Do the PhDs talk to the no Ds? And often the answer is no. But the other thing is, even do you talk to people? I mean, people, we did a thing today at church. My morning meditation ministry did a fellowship. And what was amazing, we had a time slot. People want to stay in, people are hungry for connection. Because Gloria Steinem once said, if it's happening to one woman, it's probably happening to all women.
Yes.
If someone is looking at the inequalities from divorce, that's not your problem. It's a global problem. If people are looking at pay cuts, It's not your problem. It's a global problem. So we have to be able to have these conversations because too many of us self-isolate. And by
Mhm.
the time you don't talk, you don't tell people what your problem is. Like I told you all about the money I lost with the feds, and it's gonna cause me some challenges. And a friend of mine said, I wouldn't tell people that. It will make them think less of you. I said, no, it would make them think more because I'm transparent, you
No,
know.
if they think less, okay, that's on you because that's a reflection of you. I
Well,
will if I
my
need
mom
to
used to tell
look,
me, she
help
said,
me.
You're like an old refrigerator. You can't keep spit." Because I tell it all. If you ask, I'll tell you. Um,
No, but
Anything.
people, but but part of the problem is, Dr. Melville, people are playing and fronting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's
Almost
their
everybody
detriment.
you know is a paycheck away from oblivion, or two or three. That's just the reality.
And I have someone calling for another Zoom.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Santita, but
No, I love you. What's your closing thought?
well, let me see. My If we must die, let it not be like hogs, haunted and pinned to this inglorious spot. That's Claude McKay.
Claude
He ends,
McKay.
he ends by saying in that long poem, he ends by saying, press the wall, dying but fighting back. We got to fight back. We got to fight back. And if we don't, we are basically co conspirators in our own oppression.
Yes.
And
Well,
keep
you
your
know
money in
what?
your pocket. And keep your money in your pocket. And we do not need to be buying this and buying that. You
That's
know,
right.
that I mean, I like to I like to shop and all that. I have a shopping moratorium. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't buying nothing, not even new undies. I mean, I'm just like,
Well,
nope.
now that was TMI, but I love you.
Just saying. Bye,
It's
y'all.
okay. Love you, Dr. Julian Malveaux, everybody. WPFW2 on Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everybody, check her out. Sending you so much love. You know I love you, Dr.
I get
Malveaux.
you. We'll
And of
talk
course,
later.
I'll see you at our convention, the Rainbow Push Convention. Hope to see you there, Dr. Myers, June 12th, 13th, and 14th here in Chicago at Operation Push at 930 50th Street. We're going to have conversations like this and more there on June 12th, 13th, and 14th. Be there, everybody. Love you, Dr. Malveaux.
Take care. Take care, sisters.
You know, I'm very concerned because I'm seeing um we're not prepared for this moment. We're not. Our generation, and you all are younger than I am. Just barely, but you really are, Dr. Myers. And I'm just being one. I mean, keeping it 100. I was born in the '60s, and so I'm simply saying. My father told me, "Hey, if you don't like birthdays, try missing one." Okay, so I'm good with this. I
Mhm.
really am. I'm simply saying that we have a real problem here. We have been living. We used to I keep telling this. I use this all the time. We used to get buckets of chicken. Now we get individual meals. No, that's about to be over.
Mhm.
And maybe it should be because we've gotten so selfish along the way. So selfish. And we ought to be concerned, everybody, our white sisters and brown sisters and Asian sisters, everybody ought to be concerned when you see women losing these jobs because women tenuously hold on to these jobs anyway. White women still make less than white men. That's the reality. Black women have to work 9.5 months to make what a white man makes in 12 months, 9.5 more months. Latino women have to work almost a year. So we're already struggling. But when you see these, I mean, when you see someone coming into government to disrupt it and to fire all these people, my question is beyond the personalities, because these are personalities, and the fact is they had to let Elon Musk go because people didn't like him. That was the reality. People talk about Donald Trump because they don't like him. They can't even get to his policies. It's become very personal for everybody, Dr. Amar. Instead of looking at the policies and wait a minute and what the problems are. We're spending $2 trillion more a month than we take in. That's what our government is doing. You still have $1 trillion Pentagon budget, and that's the stated budget. We don't know what's underneath because it's an iceberg. We have this bellicose talk about China. We can't really do that, Dr. Amar. You know that better than anyone. You spend a lot of time out of the country.
Yeah.
They control more
They
than a
own our
quarter of
debt.
our debt.
All
They
they have
in
to do is call
they
it
in Ja-
in.
they in Japan. Do we know if they've called it in? They
Yeah.
might have.
If they do, it tanks our economy.
No, no, they might have.
Mm.
We don't know. Something happened.
Mhm.
So while we're concentrating on this man's personality, you better listen to these legislators. Dr. Latrice, you keep saying, we got to cut because we're looking at insolvency. I heard that twice over the past 4 or 5 days. And I had to stop. I had to stop. Something is going on here. They're eliminating the penny. What's that about? I'm going to have Dr. Malvo come back on here to talk about that. Because if they go to a cashless society, that means anybody can lock up your money for any reason.
Mhm.
That's dangerous.
And
And
we keep more
marginalized
money out of
communities,
banks than other groups do.
that
We still
marginalized
hang on to cash.
communities, that's right. Because marginalized communities, that's how we've made our money with the juke
Hmm.
joint,
Hmm.
running numbers, which is
Hmm.
now the lottery.
Hmm.
That's what we've done. So wait a minute. So you mean to tell me if I don't have access to cash and I've got to depend upon Elon and his crew, who, if they get upset with me, lock my money down like they locked me down on X? Wait a minute, like they locked me down on Facebook.
Mm.
I'm simply saying we've got to ask some deeper questions. And I see Phyllis Terry in there looking, nodding.
Or if you go through
I'm
the
just,
fact
I'm
this
just, I'm
crypto
just
thing.
going, I'm just gonna pull her up. I'm gonna put her on mute. Yeah, because I know, because when I put you on, but I want everyone to see you. Those of us who are looking, she is an independent voter. And I know she has wanted to say something, and I've wanted to hear her so she could throw everything into chaos. But you know what? I wanted to bring the story to you from Semaphore. See this, everybody? AI resorts to blackmail in simulations. Um, its latest intelligence model resorted to blackmail when told it would be taken offline. I want you all, you can't make this up. In a safety test, the AI company, Anthropic, asked Claude Opus 4 to act as an assistant to a fictional company, but then gave it access, also fictional, uh, to emails saying that it would be replaced, and also that the engineer behind the decision was cheating on his wife. Anthropic said the model, quote, threatened to reveal the affair if the replacement went ahead. That's
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 AI.
AI.
I'll
I'll
send it
send
to
it
you,
to you,
Phil.
Phil.
Don't
Don't
worry.
worry.
I have to put you on. I keep you on mute so we don't get feedback. Okay. The whole system, Dr. Amar. You spend time in a part of the world that has. You've lived out of the country, and you lived in a part of the world that has gone. I mean, you can tell that. I mean, they have state of the art everything.
One of the things that was said by someone visiting the UAE from America um, when they landed was that they were just so incredibly surprised because 50 years ago, the UAE was desert. It was a lot of sand. There was a long, long single road between the two major cities, and there weren't very many buildings. 60 years ago, Sheikh Zayed was looking for oil. He was trying to, the UAE didn't have oil, and they were one of the few countries that didn't. And when they hit oil, he dedicated the use of that oil in three ways. The first way was that he wanted to focus on developing a healthcare infrastructure, particularly around maternal health, protect the women, protect the children. The second way, and you
Wait,
can
wait, wait
even
a
see
minute.
this if you come in through,
Say that one more time because I think that's
he
important
focused
because
initially,
our women are dying.
right, the founder of the UAE, Sheikh Zayed, he focused on, when they found the oil, he focused on maternal health. They built the first hospital, Corniche Hospital in Abu Dhabi, to focus on maternal health and then to expand and create a healthcare infrastructure. The next thing that was a high focus was education. He pushed that every Emirati must pursue a high level of education. One of the things that shocks me, given the stereotypes that we have about that part of the world and this part of the world, were the number of Emirati women that I met who had master's degrees and doctorates. I mean, it was just like, over and over and over. Um, and then the third thing was that the wealth must be shared, that the wealth belongs to the people. And so they
So, wait, so
secure,
hold on. I don't want us to miss a lot of these pieces because we're talking about women here, right?
we
This
are,
is a part
we
of the
are,
world, Dr. Myers, Phyllis Terry, Dr. Latrice, we think these women are just shrouded and they're not prepared to be a part of the world. And what you're saying is when he came into wealth, maternal health and the babies,
yes,
we've got to take care of them.
yes,
Education and the sharing of the wealth. So
yes.
he created a floor beneath which no one should fall, right?
Yes,
Because
that's
that
exactly what
promotes
he did. As a matter of
social
fact, when
stability.
he found out that some Emiratis were renting
Hmm.
their homes and were at risk of, because the British had occupied them for a
Hmm.
while and had done what the British do in many places that they colonized.
In every
And
place.
yes.
Right.
And so when he realized that Emiratis were now being placed in a position of debt to British companies that owned residences and things, that began a focus on the stipend and the stipend system. So while we as African Americans in this country have never received the reparations that our ancestors were due and did not receive any economic support from the federal government when our ancestors were freed, their society recognized that a people who are economically dependent on their former oppressors are not a free people. And so, Emiratis, when they reach a certain age, not only do they receive a regular monthly stipend from the government, but they also receive additional housing support, including a house. You can get a house. Um,
The reason I'm stopping you is because I don't want people, Dr. Myers and Dr. Latrice and and Dr. Terry, Phyllis Terry, I don't want people to miss this because it is socially unsustainable to have poverty that is systemic, to have
yes,
poverty anyway.
Exactly. Yes.
And
yeah,
what we have is systemic poverty. What we have
right,
been doing, we have been unplugging people. You have a country of 340 million people. That is what's on the books.
mhm,
We have fewer than 1 million hospital beds. You don't intend
right,
for anybody to be well.
right. But
We've
what
got
we
the
don't
highest
have
rate of
Because
are
it's
the
in
maternal
business for you
mortality.
not to be well. Let's be
right,
clear.
That's it. You've
right.
got the
But what we
highest
don't,
rate of maternal mortality in
mhm,
the industrialized world.
Right.
And
yes,
we keep listening to we're number one. And what?
No,
no,
And
we are not.
we're not.
We
that's
are
why I
not.
went to you because you've lived in another part of the world and you've seen something else where they think
Yeah.
that what we're doing is uncivilized. I'm
But the
sure.
other
Yeah.
part of
Oh,
that,
oh,
Santita,
completely. And one of the things about it, and I've got to run in a moment. Thanks
Hmm.
for giving me an opening. But one of the reasons that I'm mentioning kind of that history is because if you go there now, if you go there 50, 55 years after the oil was found, it is a society that is incredibly advanced. It's also a society that is very safe to walk down the street anytime, day or night. The levels of every society has problems. Their problems are not the same as ours by any means, but their advancement as the COVID pandemic came down and America, looked at blue collar workers and said, "You're essential, but we don't compensate you in that way, and we don't treat you in that way, and we will discard you as soon as we are past the crisis." The UAE handled that entirely different. I did not have the same
What did they do?
experience that others had. Well, in October of 2019, when the information was provided to world leaders about this encroaching pandemic,
That's right.
they convened the scientists and the ministers. They took a real approach. They did not dive into conspiracy theories. They dove into policy and action. They had up and operational an entire seamless background for handling the first cases that came in, for handling all of the initial problems with the pandemic of people getting ill. They had all of that. They had the plans put together for our quarantine period and how short it would be because we were not on quarantine for the length of time that you saw in European countries. And what that meant was that in February of 2020, when 27 Italian bikers came to the country, they tested positive at the airport. They were detected at the airport. They walked through a heat sensor. It set the sensor off, unbeknownst to the rest of us, because the government isn't alarmist to its population.
Mhm.
They were taken uh, within the airport itself and examined to see if they were showing early signs of COVID. There were no tests at the time, but did it seem likely that this illness might be COVID? For the ones that were, they were immediately placed into treatment. For the ones that did not show signs, they were immediately placed into quarantine. Quarantine didn't look like giant, crazy barracks or anything like that. The Emirati government had taken a lot of the overstock of real estate and some of the hotels, and in one area, there was even a neighborhood that was under development. They had taken some of those properties and turned them into quarantine and treatment areas. And so, if you were pulled into quarantine in 2020, you were taken to a studio apartment. You were given iPads, your family members were given iPads. You were able to access nursing right downstairs at your building or within your block. It was very, very well organized. And as soon as you were able, you left. But while you were in quarantine, both you and your family were taken care of. And that meant down to the children. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed came on television and showed a family where the parents, Indian migrants, expats, sorry,
Mhm.
Indian expats, had both tested positive and were hospitalized. Their five children ranged from age 12 to age 1. The 12-year-old was then responsible for taking care of all the other children in the house because mommy and daddy had just been taken off. And they sent a social worker right away. Social worker brought iPads. There were separate iPads for each school age child so that they could continue with their education. And they were shown how to communicate with their parents by iPad. And a police officer was stationed outside of their home so that if the 12-year-old had any sudden need, she opened the door and help was available. They also arranged for food to be brought 3 times a day and for other supportive services. It was incredible. And we had by 2022, we still were under 1,000 cases of COVID within the country. And it was only when the Delta version came out that those numbers began to peak a little bit. But it was seamless. It was honestly seamless. I'm talking about the UAE and what's done there, and maybe people think that if you have enough oil money, you can do anything. But there are countries that squander great wealth. The
Yeah.
United States is one of those. Um, this example of what was being done with oil wealth can be contrasted with what's done with oil wealth in the United States. We have huge reserves of oil, and we certainly spent a good amount of time during the 1920s forward stealing land from Black families when oil was found on their land.
Mhm.
My family's one of those families. And so um, instead of ever saying that the oil belonged to the people, whether it would have been to provide us with a basic living wage, such as you see in countries like, I believe Denmark has a basic wage,
Mhm.
um,
Well, what
instead of
Gaddafi did. I mean, that's what
and
Gaddafi did.
Gaddafi did the same thing. Instead of providing each American with a basic living wage, instead of using our natural resources in order to support our schools, support our communities, help us to be stronger and grow stronger together. We've been encouraged to act like crabs in a barrel. And there's only 1% of the people in this United States, less than 20 families, that control the vast majority of the wealth. And the rest of us, no matter what you have or don't have, we are at the bottom of that. And they are continuing to make sure that more and more money is funneled to the very rich. And if that means that they have to take away every opportunity that we have to stabilize ourselves and our families, then that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's part of what that Project 2025 was. When we talk about how do we get here with this targeting around African American women losing jobs at this level, you can go back to the way in which 2025, Project 2025 was supposed to dismantle systems that we heavily rely on.
But hold on. Let me just say this. I know you've got to go, but I
I
think
do.
that's why I'm saying we need to listen
Oh,
to what
I'm over.
everybody
Yeah.
says, because you have people who are saying that there are too many people, that we are overpopulated.
No.
Reverend Evans, my pastor, Reverend Clay
Mm-hmm.
Evans, said, "I've never seen God make a mouth he couldn't feed. I've
Mm-hmm.
never God have I've never seen God have a vision without making provision. We're visions of God. We're
Yes.
manifestations. So you mean no, no, this is ungodly what we're doing." And that's why I
Right.
wanted you to describe what you have lived, what you have seen. And when we look at these countries, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Latrice, Dr. Myers, Phyllis Terry, and we see we're trying to figure out how to keep people out of school.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying there are too many people in the world. Who does that?
Right.
I mean, and you say it with a smile, like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, and so while we're talking, we're eliminating whole classes of people,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Amar,
Yeah.
Dr. Myers, Dr. Latrice, Phyllis, we're saying that people are not necessary. Now you got AI that says, "Oh, okay, I'm a threat." How can we get excited about that? You've got the technological prowess that is outstripping our morality. We haven't grown. I mean, we're going back morally while we're marching off into the future
Mm-hmm.
technologically. I think we need to start asking some questions. They're eliminating the penny, y'all, which means they are one step closer to you having no cash.
Mm-hmm.
I
and
don't know.
everybody getting excited about crypto that's
Mm-hmm.
backed by nothing.
Yeah.
But if you go to right wing channels, they're selling gold.
Mm-hmm.
These folks know something. I'm just saying, don't get so caught up in your partisan bag that you don't listen to what everybody's saying. And everybody's got a little something, and a broken clock can be right twice a day. Dr. Amar, what would you like to say before you go?
Um, I just want to say that I agree with Dr. Malvo's last statement that we really do have to continue to push back and fight, and it's scary. It's not easy when you think that people might come after you in some way if you speak out. But we have never gotten anything easily. We have fought for everything that we have gotten. And it's only when we're silent, it's only when we stop that we begin to lose. We can debate internally about whether or not we need to be better as entrepreneurs or more connected within our communities. But we cannot have those debates in a society that silences freedom of speech, that doesn't educate children to engage in critical thinking, and that is trying to turn us against one another by stripping us of our most basic needs so that we're unable to focus on our most deserved aspirations. And so I want to encourage everybody that can and will to continue to fight, and may God bless you in it. Thanks so much, my sisters. I got to
My
run.
sister, love you so much.
Love you too.
Well, we just have a few more minutes left here, but I'm so glad that we've been able to have this conversation. I'm going to try a little something here. That's right, everybody's muted. Unmute yourself, Phyllis. Let's see if this will work since everybody else stays muted. Okay, well, no, I'll do it. Let me see. Let me do it. Okay. Hold on. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute myself, and I want you, Phyllis, independent voter, registered, excuse me, independent voter, and someone whose mind I have so much respect for you, and I'm glad that you've stayed and listened to the conversation because I really wanted you to be a part of it, and you have been. I'm going to mute myself, and I would like for you to comment on what you've heard. Is that okay? Okay, very good. I can't hear her. We're going to work this out because next time you're going to be on the show. You've been on before. We're going to work this out. But I'm hoping that, Dr. Myers and Dr. Latrice and Phyllis, that we're going to begin to ask some deeper questions about, not about how we're going to get our jobs back. But Dr. King asked the profound question, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? He told us almost 60 years ago, Dr. Latrice, Dr. Myers, Phyllis, Terry, that if you continue to spend more money on war than programs of spiritual and social uplift, we're headed towards spiritual death. When you look at this society, we have a society that is crumbling. The devil is the author of confusion. People don't know who they are. They don't know where they're going. We don't know what we need to be, what we need to, and what we're seeing is but a symptom of a deeper problem, I think. And so I want to hear from you all. Just you tell me what your thoughts are. I need you all to unmute yourselves, Dr. Myers and Dr. Latrice. Just tell me, help me. What do you see? Because, Dr. Latrice has children who have children. And I know you have got to be a little anxious for what you see for them. Right? Because I know I have more days behind me than I have ahead. Right? I want to be in a good place, until I get out of here. But it's very clear that Social Security is not something we're going to really be able to depend upon. That's the safety net has been removed. And what put the safety net in place was an America that was on the verge of revolution in the 20s and 30s and 40s. What interrupted that was a world war. But Americans were so infuriated by a gilded age that we're still in. We have people who are on track to become trillionaires. So we actually do have trillionaires. We just don't see them. We don't talk about the royal family. We don't talk about the Rothschilds and nothing, but they are. They exist. And these people control how we live. I'm just wondering, I see what's happening with Black women, but I know it's going to happen to Indigenous women because their outcomes are worse than ours, Dr. Myers.
It's going to happen to everybody. And until you feel it and until it touches your doorstep, then and only then will you get the level of response.
What did you see in PG County, which is the wealthiest county outside of, if for Black people in the United States, it's just outside of Washington, D.C. And
it's a county that is built upon the federal workforce.
Okay.
Most of the people, I would venture to say 80 to 90% of the folks that live in Prince George's County work in the public sector in some way, shape, or form. Many of them working in Washington, D.C. or in Maryland or Virginia for federal agencies. So you have the ecosystem that's there, that's built in for the federal workforce, that's already on the ground. You also have military installations that are there. Everything from Fort Myers to, Bolin Air Force Base, Andrews Air Force Base, all of the bases that are around that location. A lot of those military personnel live in Prince George's County. So when you talk about, how money fluctuates and moves throughout the county, it is because it gets its juice from DC. There is no doubt about that. So with cuts come government contractors, which a lot of veterans have been government contractors, or they've been a part of the GS system itself. And so when you cut those things down or out, you leave a lot of families in the lurch. So I think, I think it's something that Dr. Latrice talked about a little bit earlier when you talk about how many people are dependent upon services. They are calling her to find out how I can apply for XYZ service. You see people who, you drive a Mercedes Benz, but you need to go visit the food pantry. And that's not unseen,
Do you know how many luxury cars are Ubering?
Exactly. So when you think about, and that's what I'm saying, when we talk about the type of jobs that are being leveraged versus those that are being lost, when you think about that, the gig economy is going up, retail is going up, jobs that we thought were solely for years. A lot of people, this is a starter job. McDonald's is a job for a high school student to have after school. When I got people that are 65 and 70 years old selling me a cheeseburger at McDonald's, and this is what they do so they can afford medical insurance. When you talk about the number of people that are homeless in the state of Wisconsin, where I live now, we have a burgeoning homeless population of senior citizens. So we don't have enough housing for senior citizens to live in. So this is a real issue. When you think about people who have worked their entire lives, yet don't make enough money to have sustainable shelter, that's a problem. When, they have to rely on the county meal service program to get their one meal a day, they will drop off lunch to them or go to one of the county park facilities so that they can have a meal. That's a real situation. It gets even worse. And I live in a city. So imagine what it is if you live in the outskirts of a city. You live in the rural community where, the nearest bank is 30 miles away, or you have to go into town to do XYZ. So all of those services are then farther and farther away, and you have to get access to those things. So it's a lot that is at stake. And like I said, a lot of people are going to fool around and find out as far as this election is concerned. It's going to touch everybody. But I think when you see a lot of rural America, I think go back to the 1920s when you look at photos of what made us a conscious society about how the Great Depression, the story was told. When you look at the photographs that were sent there, it didn't bother people if it was Black folks in a bread line. It didn't bother people if you saw people who were sharecropping and picking cotton. You saw, oh, that's just a bad thing for those people. But when you saw white faces that were dirty, that were homeless, that were sitting in a bread line, America woke up and said, oh, this is a real problem. That's why Social Security was able to be effective and to be passed. And to do all
it had to be. But
they
wait a
had
minute,
to hurt.
Dr. Myers, they had to do something, Dr. Latrice Phyllis, because Americans were so furious.
Yeah.
That they elected this man 4 times. They said, no, you got to keep on going with the New Deal. Because the old deal does not work. The
old deal didn't work for us. So we need the New Deal. It is similar to when you think about the Great Society programs. It did not go as far. But when you think about the unraveling that has taken place in just the last, 4 or 5 months, that this man has been in office, that you think about the unraveling that has been undone in that amount of time. You're seeing a lot of those New Deal expectations, Great Society programs like free lunch, free books for kids at school, free breakfast, all of those things that exist. There was a time when people had to pay for textbooks when you went to public school. So now you're going back to those times when it's like, well, is compulsory attendance real? A lot of states are saying, no, if you're 16, you can go work in a factory. You can go do that. You don't have to stay in school. So if you look at states like Florida, they are opening the floodgates to say education is not that important. By the time you get to 8th grade, that's enough for you. You can go get a job.
Well, we don't want to educate.
Who is that targeted? Yeah. So when you think about all of these things, we need we need additional hands in the workforce. You're not going back to, prior to it, like the 1910s and 1920s, when you had little kids working machines and button factories and losing fingers.
But Dr. Myers, part of what we're not doing, we're not looking at vocational education.
No.
See, we're reducing our options. We think that an academic
that has been done by design, though, Santita. Because
yeah, but I'm just saying, but some of it
in
is
cities,
also
especially. Oh, absolutely. A lot of our unions, if you live in Wisconsin, the unions have moved their workstations outside of the city. I don't know about in Illinois and in Chicago.
No, but what I'm saying is
a trade certificate once you graduated from high school in Milwaukee. We were the workshop.
We've done that everywhere.
Yeah.
And my
now those
thing
programs
is
got pulled back.
what we have and we let it happen because our
Yeah.
ambition is send our children to school and not to trade school. If we
Absolutely.
have children
Yes.
who say, I want to be a contractor, I
Mhm.
want to be a plumber, I want to be an electrician, we go, oh, wait a minute, oh, poo. Wait a minute. You come out within 10 years of coming out of high school, you're making $100,000 a year.
Not even 10 years.
And
I
you,
give you
and you,
5.
that's it. Because, and there
I
is a
give you
program
5.
here where in 5 years you're making 50 and they pay for your education.
Absolutely.
But we're not looking at that. Other
Or
people are looking
even
at
to
that,
talk about
and
that,
we're
the
not looking at
military.
we're
So a
not
lot of
looking at
people
doing
went to the
hair,
military for the benefits as well.
but not just that, the hair, cooking,
Yeah.
sewing. Wait. We've got this all turned inside out, outside in. And so I'm saying maybe I believe in God. Maybe all of this is helping us to get things right, Dr. Myers.
Yes.
That's right.
Maybe because maybe our thinking was not quite right. Because when we went to college, we started thinking that the woman who fried fish up the street from the black colleges that we went to, okay, that no, see, I know I want to work in my day, Xerox, IBM, then it was Apple, right? No, if you get that job, that's the job you want. Instead of A.G. Gaston, one of the iconic businessmen, who was a
Find a
black
need
man.
and fill it. That's what he did.
He said,
Find a need and
that
fill it.
was that not his mission?
That was his mission.
He said that's what you do in business. That's what John Johnson did. Wait a minute, that's what the Gardeners did with hair care products.
Yeah.
That's what George Johnson did with hair grease. We wanted music that catered to our taste. That's what Al Bell and Berry Gordy did. Wait a minute. I'm just asking, what are we doing? Because we're still looking we're still looking outside of ourselves, Lakeisha. And you know what? I'm saying this, it's not just for Black people. We're looking outside of ourselves when everything is just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. At the end of the day, after she pulled back the curtain on the wizard, and she saw he was a little man who was afraid to be taken out the curtains, and she said, "Wait a minute, you mean to tell me after it was all said and done, you mean I could have gone home?" They said, "All you had to do was believe. Click your heels 3 times, girl. Yeah, you're already in Kansas. Wake up." Is that not what happened?
Yeah.
Wake up, Dorothy. Wake up. And when she woke up, she was like, "Well, wait a minute." And then she saw all of the gifts that she had. Thank you, Auntie M. Oh, Uncle, I love y'all so much. Woo. Before I was knocked out here, I saw all that I didn't have. We just heard Dr. Amar tell us what she saw in the UAE. We keep thinking we're civilized. We're not civilized here.
The other piece of that she was talking about, my brother was one of the people who the UAE for years, and I think it's still going on, was recruiting American teachers to come to the UAE to teach. So they tapped into a ready-made resource of certified educators, many of whom were Black and brown, that were able to take their talents to the United Arab Emirates to be paid fairly, to do all these things, and to live well, because teachers are so respected in other locations that they are not in the United States.
No, they're not just respected, they're esteemed.
Exactly. Yes. That is one of the highest things that you could be.
If I didn't have Miss Irene B. Smith, who taught me to read, I wouldn't be able to do anything. That was more than 50 years ago. I think of that woman every single day. Every day of my life. Every day. So our values, everybody's looking at the Diddy trial. You got Mike Jeffries, who owned Abercrombie and Fitch, who used it as a recruiting tool to bring boys, straight and gay, into his lair. He was plying them with drugs so he could have his way with them. Come on. There's a sickness here. It's not right. You got another billionaire who they just found was doing the same thing. I mean, come on. This is sick. Now, what are we going to do? So, you know what? Unmute yourself, Dr. Latrice. We are about to go. And Miss Phyllis, next time we're gonna work this out so you can, because I want to. Did you send me a text? Oh, darn it! I was thought you were gonna say something that was gonna light us up. But Dr. Latrice, because I love my Phyllis because she says so much, and she's provocative. In a great way. And you're right, K Mike. They want to replace us with AI, but oh, you know what? I know that God is real. And one thing you can't do, you can't lose with the stuff I use. I know that people are necessary, and you're gonna fool around and find out. How about that?
Mhm. Mm.
Keep on going with that. You keep on going with that. Not you, but they're gonna
Mm.
keep on going with that because what we're doing, we are on the road to the devil's home.
Mm.
Everything we're doing is off. It's not right. I'm not going to even act like it's right. So,
Mm.
Dr. Latrice, your closing thought?
Yes, I just want to say, just in conclusion, that I'm going to continue to talk to my children and let them know that there are a number of different ways that we can survive. But the main thing we have to do is advocate for ourselves, and we have to hold people accountable who say they represent us. I think about how we got into this mess. I think about just the last 12 months and how many of us were fighting, trying to get people to pay attention to the election and to what was happening right before us. But do you see the aftermath, what it looks like now? I mean, it's unreal. It's unbelievable. And many of us saw it coming, but it was like no one could really prepare people for this other side because many people were really removed from the whole electoral process. They thought it didn't matter. They didn't think they had to pay attention. And in a lot of ways, I blame those people the parties that they went under, because, for a long time with the Democratic Party, we were always told that's who we stand with. People didn't really do their homework. They didn't do their research. They didn't hold people accountable. And then those of us that did do that, they tried to silence our voices. So I'm just saying we're in a place now where we have to band together and prepare. The preparation process should look extremely different now from what people thought it would look like a year ago or 5 years ago. Right now, I want my children to understand you can do what you need to do by coming together and trying to get your own things. Let's not go with the norms. Let's not go with where we were pushed to go. That's not working right now. And too many people who have paid their dues are struggling. And so we have to pay attention. This is a time now not to be afraid and not to be quiet. So, I'm down for whatever I need to do to unite and to amplify our voices. And we're going to make noise for change.
That's right. That's your organization. I want you to come to the Rainbow Push International Conference we're going to be at home at 930 50th Street. Go to rainbowpush.org. It's June 12th, 13th, and 14th. All my brothers and sisters up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I saw you all last year. Come on down. We're going to have some conversations about everybody. Because we're talking about Black women today. It's white women, it's brown women, it's Asian women, it's indigenous women, it's all women, and it's all people. We're all one, everybody. We are one. And we're about to find out. I love you, everybody. The Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless you.